it looks like we've given people enough time if we have some stragglers coming in, so be it, but let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Robert, I'm going to let you lead here, but I have a feeling we might start with wins.
Yes. Yeah, we like to start with wins. We just want to know how you guys are winning, what good things are happening. I know, like when I've been in group coaching calls in the past, like myself, like we get coaching too. Like I've been kind of like resistant or like hesitant, like this is kind of corny type of idea. But I there's like a lot of people in here that are new, and so I really like people who've been with us, who've experienced wins in their business to share the good things that's happening as like a proof that this works. And then also there's just a ton of studies that have been done that like the brain, when it's in more of like a positive like frame, that like a lot better learning can take place, you know, when you're laughing, when you're happy, when all that. And so if someone can help Roman with his audio, he's talking about his audio. So all that to say, wins. Shatoya, it looks like you raised your hand first. Jerome, it seems like you're about to say something, and I want to hear from you, but ladies first. So Shatoya, why don't you go ahead?
All right, good morning. So
Morning.
I feel like good morning. I feel like we actually have a couple wins this week. Bryce helped us because I was having issues. I do the onboarding within our company, and I was having issues like bringing someone in. It was just a long process just to do onboarding. And so we just changed a few things, which caused, I mean, not everyone actually ended up starting, but like 4 people out of the people that we've hired all signed their offer letter, but actually we only got 2 at the end, which was awesome. And then we kind of lost our team, and then we were like kind of rebuilding. So this week was actually our first weekly meeting of, after regrowing our team. It was a great turnout. So I think those were our wins for the week. Thank you.
Come
That's
on.
awesome. Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah, we really are big on that in the onboarding process, and it's fairly common to have to do that, to have to rebuild your team when you're in a growth season. It's like sometimes as an owner, like you have these ideals, these values, this like vision, this goal, and like you're doing things differently as a result of working with us. If you're working with Redmond Growth, we're going to ask you to do things differently. And sometimes the doing things differently is disruptive towards people because they're stuck in the old way of doing things and you need to replace them and rebuild. But the cool part about that is that you start on a new standard. So that is an awesome win. Thank you for sharing. Jerome, did you have a win earlier? He's unmuting his mic. He's working on it. Oh, I believe in you. Okay, while you're working on that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got it on muted now. So I had just one meeting with Jonathan, and I have a bunch of to-dos, which is great. I like changing stuff, so I really don't have any wins except we got started in some.
That's worth celebrating. Yeah, you made a big step. That's awesome. You're saying yes to your future. You're saying yes to taking back control of your business. If you stay the course, my friend, it will work, and you're in really great hands with Jonathan Rood here. So really glad to have you aboard here, Jerome.
Thank you, Robert.
Anyone else? Kind of one more. Is there anyone? William Eklund is here. Oh my gosh. William Eklund is a client of mine. I've been working with him for like 3 or 4 years now, and I didn't know he was coming today. What a great surprise. Good to see you, Will.
Yeah, good to see you.
I know a cool win for the Eklunds. We're going over wins right now. And so Will owns Eklund Heat and Air here near the Tulsa area in Owasso, Oklahoma. And, he's experienced what most HVAC guys experience, a seasonal business, really, really busy during the summer and things slow down in the winter. And when things have slowed down in the winter in the past, to keep the doors open, lights on, people paid, Will and his wife Kim have had to borrow money. And him and I were meeting yesterday, and he's like, dude, I'm basically totally out of debt. And it was like pretty significant. So glad to have you here, Will. Hope you don't mind me like sharing that on your behalf. But yeah, it was super cool. And I'm hoping he's going to take me on a dove hunt soon. We've been talking about going on a dove hunt soon. So anyway, anyone else? Anyone else want to get in before I share what we're going to cover here today?
Yeah, I'll give a quick one.
Yes, Rob.
Yeah, you've been talking, because I've been with you guys, a month and a half or whatever it's been, and you talked about doing things differently. And Travis has been pushing us pretty hard in a good way, and
Good.
I like the script. We're tracking things now. We've been in business 30 years, but similar to your friend, I'm doing this to get ready for the fall. That's when we slow down in the painting business in LA, and
Okay.
but we've had about 40 leads come in, and out of those, let's say 20 of them were, just not critical. But it looks like we closed anywhere from 4 or 5 deals so far. Had about 2, and they're 5, 6, 7 grand each. And it's all positive, in my opinion. And that's separate from our organic business that we get leads in all day, every day. But we're doing this to get ready for the fall. So been
Way to go, man.
yeah, very pleased with you guys. And I like the fact that you're honest and you have integrity. A lot of the social media guys I've dealt with have screwed us. And I could tell you a ton of stories. So just keep it short and sweet. But you guys have been honest. I like what I hear.
I really appreciate you sharing, Rob. That means a lot to hear. We really do strive. One of our core values is like putting people in front of profits. And that's like not something that we just say. That's like something that we actually believe in, to the point where, and I don't know if this is too much information, but not everyone is like you, Rob. So we sometimes get people who like to try to take advantage of us. Very rarely. But it happens. And like, we're so committed to taking care of people that we are willing for someone to like take advantage of us if it means making sure that they leave Redmond Growth with feeling satisfied, feeling happy, like all the time. So really glad that you can see that, Rob, because we really try to live that way. Well, guys, I want to get straight into it here. Before I share my slides here today, if you got the email, if you got the text, we're talking about pricing today. And we're really talking about, I kind of titled this talk, Perfecting Your Pricing. And the reason why I titled it that way is because I feel like, especially contractors, service businesses, it's like our pricing is always this question, do we have it right? I hear someone else is charging X amount, I'm charging this. How do you set a price? There's all these different methods. And I wanted to leave everyone here today feeling very confident in how to determine their own price, and also how to have confidence whenever their price is set. So having confidence in the way we create our pricing, but then having confidence in where our pricing is set at. Having confidence in the pricing that we give people, and not being fazed by the day-to-day responses from customers, okay? So I'm also gonna give Redmond Growth recommendations. Something I'm gonna cover here in my talk is there's no like set standard, like objectively to do pricing. Sometimes we may think that, we may strive for that, but it's more of a fluid thing. And so the reason why I say that is because we have a couple of recommendations that I'm going to give for construction, and I'm going to give for service. And some of those might have some overlap. You may disagree with our recommendations, and that's totally fine. I'm going to tell you why we're recommending what I'm going to recommend. You may see it differently, and that's fine, but would ask you to consider what I'm talking about here and why. Because it's really designed to help you consistently attain better profits and more consistent cash flow. That's what my recommendations are all about. And so let's get into it here. If you guys ever have questions, because this is like, I was talking to the team yesterday. I said, guys, I'm kind of afraid like that this talk is going to be a little boring. I don't want it to be boring, because there's a lot of information I want to cover, and it's going to be more like financially based. And so all that to say is I don't want to wait until the end to ask anyone for questions. If you have a question as I'm talking here, just chime in, raise your hand using the Zoom tool. You can like raise your hand on your screen, or just, say, hey, I've got a question, or in the chat, our coaches will be watching it. If you have a question, let me know. if your question is like getting too deep or too complex of an answer, is like, hey, we need to work maybe one-on-one or with your coach to address that further, I'll let you know. But I want to answer any questions that I can as we go through this here. So let's go ahead and start perfect your pricing. Okay. I'm gonna move all you guys over here so I can see it on my own screen. Okay, great.
No.
So let's get into it. Okay, so I want to start with a few things that we have noticed as coaches, as consultants, okay? We actively work typically with around 150 different business owners at a time. 90% of our clients are either in construction or in the trades, okay? And we've worked with hundreds of businesses. I think it's over 1,000 now over the past like 6 years here. And we've noticed a few things about pricing that I want to make everyone here aware of. The first thing that we've noticed is most business owners undervalue the value that they create. What I mean by that is that whenever we typically start working with a client, we very early on typically look at your pricing. The reason why we look at your pricing is because we notice that a lot of people, whenever they come on board, are undervaluing the value that they create. What does that mean? What that means is that the benefit that you're offering your customers is so much greater than the exchange of the dollars that you're charging them, okay? The benefit, the value that you're giving people really outweighs your price point. So that's the first thing that we notice. Second thing is that a lot of times, and this is especially true with your employees in the field, a lot of times people become victims of becoming buyers more than sellers. What that means is that we often typically cave in and we buy the customer story if it's like too expensive or they're concerned about X, Y, Z, and we just cave to that instead of really focusing on doubling down on our value and our uniqueness that we bring to that client. If a client is complaining about price, it's not because they can't afford it. It's just because they don't understand the value. What that indicates to you is that there's room to better communicate and display that value to justify that price point, okay? A lot of people we find shop out of their own wallets. Have you guys ever had, like, maybe yourself or one of your technicians, they're like on a job and they're like looking around in the customer's home and they're thinking to themselves like, ooh, this would be really expensive for me to pay as an employee of this business. Therefore, it's going to probably be really expensive for the customer to pay. So I'm going to lower the price because of that, because I'm making an assumption about my own wallet. What's expensive to me, I'm going to project onto the customer. That's a very common mistake that people make. Another thing is that people are like set in stone in their pricing, okay? They haven't changed their pricing in years. And because of inflation, their price is actually being lowered every year that they don't change their pricing because the value of the dollar is decreasing every year. And we're going to talk more about just what we've seen in the past 2 years with inflation and things like that. So that's something that we've noticed is people just set pricing and it's like, I've literally heard so many people say, I haven't looked at this in years. I haven't looked at this. I haven't adjusted this in years. Inflation in 2021 was 4.7%, and inflation in 2022 was 8%. In the past 2 years, if you haven't changed your prices, your prices have dropped 13%. You're losing 13% from what you made in 2021 just in the past 2 years if you haven't adjusted your prices since then. Okay? So if you haven't adjusted your prices since 2021, action item right now, increase your prices by 13% across the board. Like, and you guys can look this stuff up, okay? Like, please fact check me, in 2 years, because of COVID and all this stuff that our government did, pricing has increased, or inflation has increased by 13%. Another thing we've noticed is a lot of people are unaware of what their competitors are charging. It was funny. Will and I talked about this yesterday, actually, in our meeting with Will Eklund. You know, we were talking about what another very large company in town, Airco, like a massive HVAC company here in Tulsa, we were talking about what they were charging. And luckily, Will had like a good idea of what they were charging, which was helpful to us. And it was helpful to us in our discussion because we were sorting out some price issues. Okay? Find out what other people in your field are charging. If you don't know how to do that, we have a whole method of doing that. It's called like mystery shopping, or we do a competitive analysis. Or you can just like take the limiting beliefs off your mind and just like start finding out by calling these people and finding a way to find their prices. Like asking them for an estimate, asking them for whatever, having your spouse like call someone out to your house to do an estimate. Like these are all things that we've done with people to find out what competitors are charging. Okay. Another thing is that this is very, very common. People fear that they'll lose too many clients when they raise their price. Never seen it happen. I have never seen any business that I've ever worked with lose too many clients because of their price. And if you do get into that, then you can always negotiate and always adjust that price point quickly. You know, even recently, something that I don't mean to keep picking on you, Will, but we've just been meeting with each other and we've been talking about this stuff. But something that over the summer, Will and I just noticed is that his prices have actually been too high. The cool thing is that most of his customers have been buying from him still. He's been making massive profits this summer because his prices were a little bit too high. And then we had a builder that was like, hey man, this is a little bit too high. And now we're able to negotiate with that builder to still win that job, you know? And so it's a fear, but even when we've had clients accidentally set their price way too high, they still didn't lose customers typically, you know? So it's a fear, it's common, but rarely does it happen. We find that most companies can increase their pricing by 20% without losing customers. Last thing here is charging higher prices can reassure your customers that you are among the best. Now, this is heavily based upon how you present yourself, how you brand yourself, and how you sell, okay? So if you're coming in and you're looking like a mess and you're setting your price among the highest in your industry and you're trying to tell your customer like, hey, you know I'm good because my price is high, you're not going to be very persuasive and convincing of that, okay? However, we know part of the reason why we know a Lamborghini is an ultra luxury vehicle is because they charge $300,000 for the car. Does it cost $300,000 to produce, like to manufacture the Lamborghini? Not even close, you know. However, that price point kind of reaffirms the value of the brand. You know you're working with the best. Again, there's nuances here. You have to be sure that this is represented in your branding and the way your team conducts themselves on the job, in your uniforms, and the way that you sell and communicate your value. But we've also noticed that sometimes like higher prices doesn't just mean people are going to resist. It can reassure them that, oh, I'm in good hands, you know. So here's some philosophy I want to give you to try to like bust through some of the myths I've noticed with pricing. Okay. So first thing is this. When it comes to pricing, know that there are no rules on pricing. What I mean by this is like what I was saying earlier. Sometimes we think we're hoping that there's like this like mathematical formula that's like the perfect business formula for like setting all our prices, and like objectively it's the best one. That does not exist. You get to create your own price and you get to determine whatever that price point is. There's no rules on it. There's nothing that says you have to charge X amount per hour. There's nothing that says you can only mark up your materials by this percentage. There's no rule that says any of that. You know, you can only make this much profit. Now we do have certain standards. We do have certain like benchmarks that are really helpful based upon like what's happening in the industry, what's most likely to sell at a certain price point. But the main thing I want to say here is I want to try to communicate to everyone that pricing is this fluid thing, okay? It's not something that's set in stone forever. You can change your prices whenever the heck you want. You can change them up, you can change them down. There's no rules on this, okay? So that's the first thing I want to do. The second thing is there isn't one method or one approach to determining your price in like an official right way to price out your products and services. I'm going to go over some methods that I recommend, that we recommend at Redmond Growth here today, that are really proven, that are effective. I'm going to go over some like best practice recommendations. However, again, I'm trying to communicate that there isn't like one thing, there isn't one method to determining price. There isn't one rule book, to determining your price. Why is this? Well, because we know that the cost and value of goods and services are continuously changing in our world. We just saw this with inflation. Value is continuously changing. It's this fluid thing. It's supply and demand, which means that our pricing is fluid and should be continuously changing in our business. Okay? Next point here. Your price should not be based in an exchange of time, but rather an exchange of value. What do I mean by this? Our pricing isn't an exchange of, I am going to spend 2 hours doing your job, therefore you're going to give me $200. It's not based on that. It shouldn't be based on that. It should be based on, what problem am I solving for you that you as the customer cannot solve on their own? Customers could fix their own stuff if they wanted to. They could build their own houses. They could go out, they could get licensed, they could learn a trade, they could work on their own HVAC unit. Like, there's no rules that says customers can't do that. But you as a tradesman, as a craftsman, have invested your life in learning a skill that other people do not know. I don't know anything about an HVAC system or plumbing system. I literally know nothing about it. I don't know how many pipes are in my house. I don't even know if that's like a thing to say, how many pipes are in my house. Like, I don't even know if you count pipes. Like, I know nothing about this stuff, right? You have invested your entire life into learning this stuff. That is tremendously valuable. Don't just exchange your time, exchange value. Real quick, there's a story I like to tell. I've told this story before. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. Okay? So, there's a family in a suburban area in the town that you live in right now, okay? They have a pipe that bursts in the middle of the night, or they have, let's just not say a pipe that bursts, because you guys are going to start getting technical with me. But let's just say they have like a major water leak that happens in the middle of the night. They're calling plumbers. No one's answering the phone. Finally, they call a plumber. The plumber answers. They say, water is leaking in our home all over the place. It's 12 o'clock in the morning. No one's answering the phone. Can you come out and help? The plumber says, yes, absolutely. So the plumber goes over to their house, gets there. The family's freaking out. There's water all over the place, right? And the plumber says, okay, what's going on? So the customer's trying to say, I don't have any idea. Just water started leaking. It's leaking here. It's leaking there. I don't know how to stop it. So the plumber does a quick diagnostic. He looks around. Then he goes, oh, I see what the problem is. And he sees a loose screw and water leaking out of it. And he takes his wrench and he tightens the bolt. And then water stops, problem solved. And then the customer's, singing his praises. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. The plumber goes to the customer and gives him a bill for $500. Customer says, $500? This only took you like 2 minutes. You've only been here for like a total of 15 minutes and took you 2 minutes to fix this. Why would you charge me $500? And the plumber says, well, I charge you $1 for my time, and I charge you $499 for knowing which bolt to turn in the middle of the night when your house was flooding. Okay? It's an exchange of value. You solved an incredibly difficult problem in that person's world. Water was leaking. No one was coming out. It was the middle of the night. You're not exchanging time there. Okay? At the end of the day, your final price points should do these things. Okay? They should cover all your costs, like obviously, right? Cover all your costs. They should maximize your profits. And what I put in parentheses there is reflect your value. That's what profits are. Profits are a reflection of the value that you bring to the table. Okay? Maybe you answer your phone when no one else answers the phone, or most people don't in your industry. Maybe your guys are trained in certain processes that other people aren't processed. Maybe you have certain certifications that other people don't have. Maybe you have certain software and certain benefits for customers that other people don't have. You know, what is your value? Your price point, your profits should reflect that. And the last thing is that your price should make sure that the customer is satisfied and treated fairly for the exchange of your service or product. We all know those people that, like, again, there's no rules on pricing. So we all know those companies out there that like set a ridiculous price, like their emergency response company, and they're like able to serve customers, and customers will like pay them, but customers never work with them again and always feel ripped off on their price. We don't want to rip people off here, okay? We want to cover all our costs. We want to maximize our profits while also making sure the customer feels satisfied. Not every customer is going to do this. This is never a 100% thing, okay? So once a customer complains, don't say, I need to lower my price. There are some negative Nellies that will complain even if you offered like a ridiculously low price, because they are just negative people. They're going to complain. They're complaining Cathys, okay? I have many more alliterations, okay? There's a B word with Betty, but it's not safe to say in this room here today. That's another alliteration. Anyway, I'll continue here. So is my price right? Okay, are we, real quick check in, are we doing okay, guys? I know this is a lot of information. I'm like covering a lot of stuff. We doing good? We learning something here? Okay, awesome. I'm gonna keep going. Is my price right? Okay. So some key questions that you can ask yourself to determine the strength of your current pricing, okay? Number one, when was the last time you revisited or adjusted your pricing? Okay. If it's been more than a year, then I'm going to tell you right now, your pricing is not right. If it's been more than a year since you've adjusted your pricing, now maybe if like a year ago you adjusted to account for inflation, all these things, then okay, you're unique, your price may be right, okay? But if you set your prices based upon last year's material costs, based upon last year's going labor rates, whatever you're basing your prices on, and you haven't adjusted it in a year, your price is wrong. Okay. Second thing here, ask yourself, what is your current pricing model? And how did you get that price or that rate? Okay, if you're charging, like if you're estimating a lot of your costs off of an hourly rate, what is that hourly rate based on? Is it based upon just something that you heard like other people charge? Is it based upon like what your old boss charged when you used to work for someone else? With your pricing model, like how are you determining your current prices? How did you create what you mark up your materials at? Like what's that based in? Okay, these are some things to look at. Another question is, what is your average ticket total? Okay, what are you currently charging your customers? How did you price the last job you did? Or how did you price the last 3 jobs that you did? Again, why am I saying this? A lot of times we price a job, we go to work, and our profits are not what we estimated for. So let's go look into that. Okay, what are we actually averaging in our ticket totals? What are we currently charging? Are we actually following the model? Are we actually making the profits that we're estimating for in our estimating process, okay? What all went into the job? How do you break down the charges? Are you charging a trip charge or a call out fee? What are you charging? What's your markup? Or what are you charging for materials or labor or overhead? What's your profit margin? Okay. At a minimum, we really strive for all our clients in the trades and construction at a minimum to achieve a 20% net profit margin. That's fairly standard, but guys, that's a minimum. That's a starting point. That's not like we got 20% net profits, we're good, you know. If you can achieve greater net profits and achieve greater satisfaction for your customers while doing so, go after it. Don't stop at the 20%. We're not being greedy pigs or anything like that. We're making sure that we're really charging what we're worth. Okay. My uncle, he's one of our clients. He's a remodeler up near the Seattle area. Okay. He takes home a 30 to 40% net profit. And he has only 5-star Google reviews, and he's the highest rated remodeler in his area. Why is he able to do that? How is he able to do that? Because he offers so much value. He's meticulously looks at detail. He's very responsive to his customers. He sets out a plan so that people know what's happening when. He has a sharp crew. He has excellent subcontractors. And so customers pay him more than what they pay the next guy, and he profits more, and they're satisfied with it. Okay? 20% is a minimum starting point. The next thing here is determine the level of your quality or service. Okay, I got a real cool example here. If we get to speak to the last 100 clients of yours, what grade would they give you? You know, another thing that we talk about is like review your own reviews. You know, would your past 100 customers be like, oh man, they're awesome? You know, would you get like a 95%, you know, from the past 100, 95% of your customers were extremely happy? You know, what are people saying about your business? Next thing here. Why would they say that? Why are we asking this question? Why are we asking why would the customer say that? Your customers will tell you what your unique value is. If you're like struggling, I don't know what my like value is I'm offering to people. What are customers telling you about what they like about you? Other people will like that too, okay? Review your reviews. We just talked about that. Also, if you're ever having like a low emotional health day, like mental health is like in the tank, read your reviews. That will always like just give you a little pick me up. You know, people will say some nice things about you and you're like, I'm loved. People value me. No, review your reviews. Okay, what are people saying about you? They're going to tell you what value you bring to the table, what they like about you. Here's an example that I love. Mercedes versus Toyota. Okay, as a contractor, are you a Mercedes or are you Toyota? And I shouldn't use Toyota because like Toyota actually, they're more affordable, but they actually make long-lasting vehicles. But insert just your basic high-level like appeal to all car company. Okay, Mercedes versus Honda, Mercedes versus whatever. Okay, nothing against Toyotas or Hondas or anything like that. But what's the example here? Okay, a Toyota Corolla will get you to the exact same place, and if you're following the speed limit at the exact same time as a Mercedes C300, okay? They will get you to the same place in the same time. So why is the Mercedes so much more expensive? It's because there's more value there, okay? In the Toyota, you're driving in, you know, fabric seats. You got a basic stereo. With a Mercedes, you've got like this leather seating with like massage chairs and like Bose surround sound, and like the chairs will like get hot for you and they'll get cold for you, and the steering wheel will do all sorts of stuff, and you can set it in sport mode and go really fast, and like there's so much more value there, okay? As a contractor, are you a Mercedes pricing yourself as a Toyota? You know, are you a Mercedes pricing yourself as a Toyota? Are you someone that leaves customers satisfied, that brings tremendous value, that people love working with, and you're charging yourself at a low to mid rate? If you are among the best in terms of what you offer, are you among the best? If you're among the best compared to your top competitors in your area, whoever's charging them more, the big boys, the franchises, whatever. If you're among the best, you should be at the table with those guys as well and be able to reflect that value to your customers too. Okay, last thing here, what are your competitors priced? Guys, this is just a hugely valuable thing to do. And again, you can just go out there and do it. Like we can help you do it. We have ways of doing it. We have like a cool spreadsheet where you like can fill in information. We'll give you like questions to ask the companies. We'll tell you how to like go about, you know, mystery shopping your competitors. Like if you need help, we're here to help. However, you also can just do it. I'm trying to empower everyone here. Okay, there's nothing that says you can't do this. Find out what your competitors charge. If you have guys working for you that used to work for a competitor, ask them. Just show them your cards. I'm trying to find out if we're priced right. Do you know what the other guys charge? You know, call a competitor. Say, hey, I want an estimate on X unit or X service or whatever. Have your spouse, you have them come out to your house and meet you. They're not going to know who you are probably, like a technician from a big name company, you know? So just find out. That's going to be extremely helpful for you. So how do I know when to increase pricing? I got to go quick here. How to know when you need to increase your pricing. Number one, how is your cash flow? Are you strapped for cash? If you're strapped for cash, call the general. No, I'm just kidding. It's time to increase your prices. Okay, if you're strapped for cash, if your cash flow is weak, good sign that you need to increase your prices. There could be other problems happening there, such as like a collections issue. You know, there could be other problems such as like an efficiency issue, like your team or you're just taking longer than you need to. But typically that's a good indication that you need to increase your pricing. Number two, do your customers ever complain about your prices? Is this a problem less than 20% of your time? If your customers complain less than 20%, so 20% or lower of the time, that's a good indication that's time to increase your prices. Okay? If your customers aren't complaining, why do we say that? A business guy that I really like, his name is Paul Graham. He's the founder of one of the most influential startup incubators to ever exist called Y Combinator. They launched Uber, Dropbox, Airbnb. Like this guy is like a business wizard. You should read this guy's essays. His name is Paul Graham. He has this quote that I love where he says, "You found the right market price whenever people complain but still buy from you." Okay. Again, I'm just trying to offer you guys another perspective on this. Okay. A lot of times when people complain, we immediately buy the story. Oh my gosh, I don't want to upset someone. I want to be a people pleaser. I want to make sure that everybody that ever interacts with me always likes me, and I can't ever tolerate if someone disagrees with me. No, keep cool and reflect your value. Explain why you're priced at that point. Sell. It's not about price, okay? Sell the value, okay? Are you typically overbooked? Are you having to turn down jobs? Ooh, supply and demand, okay? You have low supply, you're booked out, demand is high. What does that mean? Your value is higher. Increase your prices, okay? Again, that's a big one. If you are overbooked, if you're booked out, okay, and people are still calling you and they're saying, and you're having to say, hey, I can't get out until this day, and they're saying, oh, that's going to take too long. Great indication that, I mean, that just objectively, like, it's almost science. Like, your value is higher. You know, like, you can charge higher prices, okay? What percentage of the jobs do you win? If it's higher than 80%, there's room to raise your prices, okay? Now, I don't want to say that this is like an objective set in stone rule, okay? If your like lead flow is very low and you need to close every job, like that's a little bit different, okay? However, if you have a decent lead flow and you're like closing over 80% of your jobs, that means that you have room to increase your prices, okay? Be okay with turning some people away because you can be a more valuable service that not everyone can afford. Okay, again, Mercedes versus Toyota. When in doubt, start with a 10% increase across the board, you know, 300 to 330. We do this with a lot of you guys, just small incremental increases. The reason why we do this is because, again, almost every person can, when we start with them, can raise their prices. Some people are resistant, and we like to teach these concepts through this action item. Okay, we like to, hey, pricing is fluid. You can change it. People won't complain. They won't resist you, any of that. Start with a 10% price increase. Okay, 3 steps, 3 approaches to pricing. Competitive base, that's just finding what the competition charges and either undercutting them or going above them based upon what your goals are. It's a competitive analysis. Market base, you price your services based upon just what your customers accept. So long as customers keep buying from you, there's room to increase your price. until your conversion or closing ratio is where it ought to be. Sweet spot is right around 80%, right below 8%, but can vary depending upon who you are, you know, especially for remodelers. Remodelers, you could have like a closing rate of like 20% or 30% and still make a killing because the ticket totals are so much higher. This is why if we do 10% incremental increases, it's more that market-based approach. Hey, we'll keep increasing until we find like a solid price point that's that balance of people accepting it without losing too many people. Cost base, okay? Calculate the cost to you and charge your necessary margin and fee on top of that to cover your overhead and profits. The models I'm about to recommend to you are based upon this model. I don't mean to go too fast, but there's just 2 more things I want to cover with you guys here, okay? So if you are a service company, you can determine what you do, okay? We're not going to fight you. You know, we like know what works. And if you need some time to think about it or you just totally disagree, that's fine. We're not going to like force anyone here to do this. We are going to recommend though, the best kind of pricing model if you are a service company is a software-based flat rate system, okay? What do I mean by that? Here's an example. You're using a tablet. You don't have to use a tablet, but you're using a tablet. You have 3 options that you're giving people. Recommended, recommended plus, like new. Okay, this is a tool called Profit Rhino. This little screenshot here is an example of a tool called Profit Rhino. If you're using House Call Pro recently bought the company Profit Rhino. The integration between House Call Pro and Profit Rhino used to not work very well, and it works really well now. And if you're using House Call Pro and you do not have this, I'm going to tell you, spend the money, do this. You will make higher profits. You will sell more. Like it will be worth it. Okay. So that's an example. Another one is a system over here that's pretty popular for service people. It's called the new flat rate. Again, it has these like kind of different, you know, hey, tiers of what you can buy. You have like the lowest tier there, $434. Then you have like the bronze, silver, gold, platinum. Incredible model. Okay, you guys know that almost every other industry charges this way. Have you ever bought software recently? Okay, did you notice that they had like 3 plans that you could buy? This is standard. People are used to doing this. Give them options. You will sell more. There will be people that will buy the higher price that you don't think anyone would buy just because they can afford it and they want the best equipment and the most inclusive services, okay? There will be people that will buy from you that you used to think you couldn't sell to because you have a repair option, a temporary option, a basic option, okay? Give people options. More reasons why we recommend this. There's less room for error, okay? Any other model leaves some form of price calculation up to the individual technician on the job. Even if that's you, you're going to be more prone to error instead of like setting a price in stone. Next thing here is higher profits, okay? Because your pricing is determined beforehand, the profit is built into every single activity that you can perform on a job. If you've never used like software flat rate, like people will be like, well, how do I like allocate for digging? Like if you're a plumber, like I have to dig a trench. Like price out what 30 minutes or an hour of digging costs. Like price that out. You can price out everything. And as long as you're marking everything correctly in terms of the activities that you're doing with the software, you'll always make higher profits. Offer options, we talked about that just a second ago. It allows you to offer multiple options for higher levels of service. You'll always be covered. With a flat rate, you'll never have surprise expenses that you missed and weren't covered in the price that you gave the customer because it's already determined. More efficient workers, okay? And this is also like you build more trust from customers too. Because there's no price tag attached to time, your team is incentivized to finish jobs faster rather than dragging them out. This especially works well if you have some sort of merit-based pay system with your team, which I highly recommend. You know, especially for service, I highly recommend going commission for service. Why? Because your guys are incentivized to finish jobs the right way so that there's not a callback and do it as quickly as they can. So we're trying to be efficient and we're trying to do it right. And that person will also be naturally oriented. You won't have to hassle them. They'll be naturally oriented towards trying to increase price points on every single job while leaving the customer satisfied. So that's kind of a side thing, but you'll get more efficient workers. You get more trust from customers. Your customers will know the price and options up front, which will give your customers a feeling of control and trust, okay? Because they have 3 options, and those options are priced before a technician starts a job, your customer will feel like they are in control of this. We want customers to feel that way, okay? Because then they trust, then hey, I want to work with this guy. I feel like I'm in control. I could, they're going to take care of me because they're doing what I ask. So that's why we recommend software-based flat rate. There's like literally 10 other reasons why I recommend this. So if you disagree with me, send me an email, robert@redmangrowth.com. I'd love to hear why. And I'd love to just tell you some like 10 other reasons why that I didn't include here. Okay, so if you're in construction, I recommend a cost plus model. I used to live in Seattle. I started a remodeling company with one of my best friends there who was like a construction guy who worked for other people. And I was like, we need to start a company in Seattle because there's huge opportunity here. We run a cost plus model and we are operating at a 30% net profit right now. And it's our first year in business. Okay. Now, we only have like 3 people on our team right now. So it's not like we have this like huge team and all these additional costs. I expect as we grow that our margin might decrease a little bit. However, we do this through a cost plus model, okay? I'm gonna give you a formula. This is gonna look wild. It's gonna look a little complex. I'm gonna break it down for you. How do you do a cost plus model to make sure that you are always covered on construction projects, okay? Number 1, you calculate your total cost of goods sold, COGS, cost of goods sold. They're the expenses that you're getting because of the job, okay? Calculate your cost of goods sold. That's your labor, your materials, your subcontractors, any equipment rental, anything like that. Cost of goods sold. Plus, we recommend adding 5% in unexpected costs. We call that miscellaneous cost of goods sold. So add all your labor, material, equipment, subs, everything, plus 5% of that. And then divide that by 1 minus your overhead and net profit percentage, okay? What does that mean? Let's break it down. Let's say you have a job and your labor, your material, all that is $10,000, okay? Might be $500 of unexpected costs related to that. So for the first part of the formula, it's just $10,000 for labor, material, everything like that, plus $500 for unexpected costs, $10,500 for all of that. And then we find out what's our overhead and what profit margin do we want to make. So let's say that we have a 15% overhead that covers our office rent, our insurance, our admin costs, software, any expense that you'd have to pay for whether or not you sold anything. So we take our overhead, let's say that's 15%, plus the profit we want to make is 20%, and let's say that that's 35. So our overhead and profits that we want to make is 35. So now we have our cost of goods sold, we have our overhead, and we have our profits. Okay? So what's 1 minus 35% or 1 minus 0.35? That's 0.65% or 65%. Then we want to say, okay, let's divide our total cost of goods sold divided by 0.65, and that equals the final price that we charge. So where did I get the 0.65? If we need to leave 15% for overhead and 20% for profit, if we want to make 35% to cover our profits and our overhead, that means our cost of goods sold can only be 65% of the total price. Does that make sense? Are you tracking? Okay. Our cost of goods sold can only be 65% of the total price. So then what we do is tally up, add up the actual dollar amount of our cost of goods sold, divide that by 0.65, what we need the percentage of those costs to be, and that will tell you the final price you need to charge. Okay. We can help you. We also have a tool that does this automatically. Many of you are familiar with it, but why do we do cost plus? Keep profits and cash flow consistent. You guarantee your profit and you're flexible on cash flow. One of the things I love about the system is because you're telling the customer, you're only paying what I'm paying plus this fee, then there's more room for flexibility on when you're collecting money because you're basing that off of when you need to spend it for the project, okay? So you can have a lot more consistent cash flow. It's easier to sell. It's a stronger selling point. You tell the customer, you pay but what we pay, and you pay us to do the work as a fee. Okay? That approach removes a lot of cost factor objections from your projects. You win more trust because you're telling people what how you got your prices. People trust you. You have more transparency. They'll know the price and the options up front and the fee that goes with it. They're not going to be surprised. Okay. It also gives you various approaches and options. If the customer's budget isn't big enough for the ideal project scope, for the ideal of what they want to do, this method allows you to say, well, hey, we could do a little bit less, but still get X, Y, Z done. And it's really easy for us to calculate our price point because you pay, but we pay plus our fee. Okay. And then there's no surprise expenses. With cost plus, you'll never have surprise expenses that you missed because the customer is paying for it, and they weren't, and expenses that weren't covered in the price you gave the customer. So that was a lot of info. I appreciate everyone for staying with me. I felt like we needed a talk like this. We have covered like price stuff in the past, but we've never really gone that in depth and never really talked about recommendations. And so if you're confused, if you have any questions, we're going to go to breakout rooms briefly. I would also, you can schedule a laser call with me too. Okay. My laser call calendar is available if you guys want to talk to me about this stuff. If you disagree, that's fine. It really is fine. You know, I just have noticed this is the stuff that really, really works whenever companies do it. So we'll leave 5 minutes for breakout rooms. Okay. I appreciate everyone being with me today.
Yep. And something that I want to make sure everybody knows as well is there's a lot of content on these slides, intentionally so. And those slides are always included in the inventory link that's emailed with you guys every Monday along with the group recording.